Happy Sunday, everyone, and welcome to Unity of Kern County on this 6th day of August 2023. Wow, here we are on the downside now towards the end of the year. Anyways, today's message is based upon some of the wisdom teachings that Jesus gave us during his ministry. And before we start that lesson, let us do what we always do by honoring that presence of God as we best understand that presence in our life and in our prayers if we pray the Charles Fillmore prayer in the presence. I am now in the presence of pure being and immersed in the Holy Spirit of life, love, and wisdom. I acknowledge your presence and power, O blessed Spirit, and your divine wisdom. Now erase my mortal limitations, and from your pure substance of love, bring into manifestation my world according to your perfect law. And so it is. Well, in the few short years of Jesus' ministry, he had a lot to say about creating a loving relationship with God, our Father, and with those, of course, that we share this world with, his beloved children. So when asked by those who wanted to know by what authority he was teaching these people, he responded that it is not I that do the work, but the Father who sent me that does the work. In other words, he was basically saying that God worked through him. And that was the only authority that he ever needed to do his ministry. Of course, they called it blasphemy. Well, but when you look deeply into these teachings of Jesus, you can see that the teachings that we have come to realize for ourselves are the type of teachings that come to create a personal relationship with God, a relationship that is based upon peace and love, order, harmony, and of course a deep sense of well-being when we truly understand that the fact that we're all God's children and heir to the kingdom of all good. So when you really look deeply into what Jesus was trying to teach the people, a new model, a new framework, a new relationship, one that they've never had like this before, one that Jesus had, and wanted to make sure that we all had the opportunity to have that same relationship, because every time he turned around, he said, not my Father, but it was always your Father or our Father, because he truly believed we were all on the same level. And that's what irritated the Pharisees and the hierarchy and the priests of the temple. And that's what they called blasphemy, because Jesus was teaching the people that they could reach God through prayer and meditation, all right, by going into their personal room and closing the door, and when closing the door, praying to your God, your Father who hears you in secret, and of course he will reward you in secret. In other words, the Spirit will guide you, direct you, inspire you, will give you the information that you need, but you must trust in that process. And he also cautioned this too, that if we are going into prayer, we've got to do it the right way. And you can't have any ill feelings about someone or something if you're going in to pray with God, who's going to hear, because God is going to know what your feelings are. So if you come to God in prayer with any type of anger, any type of malice, any type of hate in your heart, then that is what you're going to keep seeing in your life. A lot more anger, a lot more malice, and a lot more hate. Because Jesus taught that God was a God of love, of mercy, of forgiveness. And if we are to have that same relationship that Jesus had with him, we must also come to God the same way Jesus did, with love, mercy, and forgiveness in all things. So here are four wisdom teachings that I came across in my history of reading the Bible and learning about the intricacy of Jesus's teachings. that for me ended up being 4 cornerstones for building a relationship with God, the kind that Jesus had. The very first one comes right off. I mean, it goes without saying, don't judge. And if you should be called a judge, then make sure it's a righteous judgment. Jesus was very clear about this, right judgment. In other words, do you have all the information? Do you have all the information? Chances are we don't. The only essence, the only spiritual guidance we can get all that information from is one place only, and that is God. So, are we using all our faculties, the process of gathering all the facts, all the evidence before we lash out? As Jesus said, take the log out of your own eyes before commenting on those splinters in your brother's eye. The other one is don't resent, don't condemn. If you believe you've been wronged, okay, then pray for the person who has wronged you. Why? Because it's the law of cause and effect. And to go back, we go as if you've got anger, that anger is only going to stay there. It's not going to resolve itself. You must take care of that, because no one gets a free ride in this universe. It's what we call the karmic debt of any wrongdoing must be paid by the individual creating that debt. And it will show up in some fashion, shape, or form. Believe me, it took me a long time to realize that for my early years. There was a lot of debt paying that I had to come to terms with later on in life. And every time something happened, sure enough, I would go into prayer and ask, okay, why is this happening? And a memory would come back showing me what I had done. And it was only my karmic debt being resolved. You know, we always heard and continue here, what goes around comes around. And Jesus, he even said, as you give, so you're going to get. So what are you giving out? What are you putting out there? So be careful about what you are doing, what you are saying, what you are thinking, and any type of resentment or condemnation that you might be holding in your heart. That has all got to be healed. And granted, sometimes it's going to take a little while to do it, and sometimes you're not going to be able to go to another person to make amends because that person's no longer in your life. You've moved away. But you know something? This is something else I found out about that, is that you're always going to run into someone that is going to parrot that person and their issues for you to work on. The third cornerstone is do not grab or shove your way to any type of abundant living. In other words, you can't climb on somebody else's back to get to top. All right? When we focus our attention on collecting the energy and intention on collecting things, we have to be careful. Are we doing it for the right purpose? There's nothing wrong in having an abundant life, to live with joy and prosperity in one's life. In fact, that's God's will for us, but there's a way that we need to do it. And Jesus was very understanding about this process. And at the same time, he also asked that rich man that if he wanted to follow Jesus, he had to go and sell everything. Sell everything. In effect, that was the only way he would be able to do it, because he had to give up his attachment to things, and live a true spiritual life. You can have things, but this is how you do it. This is how I learned, and this is why I've always been able to live a very comfortable life. Once I learned this, is that I don't own anything. I might have possession of it, but then I'm only here for a short time, and then it's gone. So I really don't own anything. I just have trust. I get to hold it for a while, get to use it for a while. And am I using it in the right and perfect way? So in effect, he was saying, if you live a life of fear and lack, then you're going to hoard, and you're going to lose out and it only brings more of the same, and you're going to lose it. And I've known a lot of people that have amassed a fortune only to live in fear of losing it. Government's going to come and take it. Someone's going to scam me. The banks are going to go bankrupt. The market's going to crash. That's all fear-based. Every single one of them is fear-based. It's emotional non-attachment that brings peace instead of fear. And that will create an abundance in your life. Abundance of knowing that, yes, you have possession of something right now, and then it moves through, and you possess something else, and it moves through. You don't hoard it, you don't keep it. Because when you do, you become fearful of losing it. Bless it, release it. And number 4, don't resist by surrendering all circumstances and situations to God. Now, I've talked on this times before, that when we go to God and seek God as directed, then we find that whatever we need, whatever is available for us, whatever the will of God is, it is there for us to use. And after all, God's will for us is joy and happiness, peace and understanding. And after all, it is the Father's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. And that kingdom is life and health and happiness, prosperity, joy, and life-fulfilling activities. You know, if Jesus was here today, I think he would come up with some ideas about God's will, and I'll share them with you. It's not God's will for you to do anything that is beyond your God-given abilities, strength, or skills. Use what you have. Bless what you have. The other is, it's not God's will for you to expand all your energy at the expense of your health and well-being. You need to take care of yourself first. Jesus did. He went out in the wilderness and he prayed and he meditated and he took care of himself. Then he came back and he ministered. He would also say it is not God's will for you to live a life of debt and sacrifice. It is also not God's will for you to sacrifice your personal truth or your personal spiritual values because somebody else tells you you need to. It is not God's will for you to also harm another child of God in God's name. So what is God's will? Well, it's for us to experience the kingdom of heaven any time, any place of our choosing. It is God's will for us to develop a loving relationship, if you will, with him and with those whom we share this world with. After all, everyone here is a beloved child of God. So, something to think about this coming week. And like I've said before, if you have questions about anything that I share with you on a Sunday basis, please let me know via my Facebook Messenger or my YouTube, and of course my email, RevChuckUnity@yahoo.com, RevChuckUnity@yahoo.com. And so until next week, I wish you all the best. Enjoy the rest of what the summer holds for you. And until next week, remember to be good to yourself and others. God bless you, dear friends.